Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. It has been a hot minute since I made a YouTube video. I feel like I was finally getting into the flow of making things, and then, I don't know, life happened. As it always does, something got in the way. I'm a lot more active on Instagram. I have a lot of, I have a bigger nursing community on my Instagram, like future nursing students, like current nursing students, nursing graduates. So if you want to follow me on there, it's Jessie Jo James. But I did want to try and make a video about my NCLEX experience because I did graduate. I did pass my NCLEX, so I am officially a nurse. It feels so surreal to say still. Like, some days I wake up and I'm like, holy shit, like, I'm a nurse, like, I'm not prepared, like, I'm not ready for this. And then some days I'm like, I'm a nurse, like, I got this. So it's like been a roller coaster. So I passed the NCLEX in 90 questions, and first of all, try not to focus on the number of questions like I did, and like, I'm sure you will anyway, but try not to focus on the number, because I have friends who passed in 75 questions, and I have friends who passed with 145, which was the maximum. I believe the maximum used to be 245, but they cut it down during the pandemic. So another thing to note is that the NCLEX is a CAD, which means Computer Adaptive Test. So what this means is you're gonna start at a 0% level. And then you take the first question. If you get it correct, then you move up to +1. If you get it incorrect, you're going to go down to -1. So let's say I get the first two questions correct. The third question I get wrong, so I'm back down to +1. Then if I get another one wrong, I'm down to 0. If I get another one wrong, I'm down to -1. So basically, by the end of the NCLEX and when your computer shuts off, all you have to do is be above 0, which is crazy when you think about it, because what we're trained in nursing school is like we have to get like a 74 or 75% to even pass the exam. So we've been trained very differently for nursing school compared to how the NCLEX runs. But I also believe that the NCLEX is probably easier than any nursing school exam we've taken. So I'll go into that more in a minute. A little trick that we were told in my class, I believe someone came and spoke to us. It was like an ATI representative or something, and she basically told us a trick to know how well you're doing during the NCLEX is to look out for the number of select all that apply questions. And I know we all hate select all that apply questions in nursing school. Like 4 select all that applies on an exam would be too much for me. Like, I would probably get 3 out of 4 of those incorrect. Like, they were the bane of my existence, and I'm sure we can all agree on this, right? But in the NCLEX world, the more select-alls that you get, the better you're typically doing. And I really wish someone had told me this before, because I would have focused on select-all that apply questions and like how to specifically answer them, and like how to rule out incorrect answers. I feel like I would have focused on these types of questions a lot earlier in my nursing school career if I had known this. But no one told us until like 2 weeks before we graduated. So I'm glad someone told us, but it would have been nice to have this little heads up early. So if you don't know that, now you do. So for example, on my exam, the first probably 25 questions were not select all that applies. And I was sitting there going, oh my goodness, I failed. This is horrendous. Like, I've not had a single select all that apply. And then, I swear to God, the last 50 questions were mostly select all that applies. And then I was kind of like, whew, I'm doing okay, like this must be a good sign. But obviously I was stressing because I felt like I knew nothing, and I was stressed because there was like select all that applies. So it's like a catch-22, because I was stressed because typically select all that applies are more difficult to answer, but also I was kind of feeling a little bit more relieved because in my head I was like, okay, this is a sign that I'm doing well, I might pass this NCLEX, like, we got this. The first question they give us is going to be quite easy. It's going to be like a very entry-level basic question that they expect 50% of us to get correct. If I get that first one correct, then the next question they give me is going to be even harder. So it might be like only, 25% of that original 50% are going to get it correct. So if I get that one correct, I go up again, and each level is like more difficult. And that's why typically when we see more select all that applies, which are typically more difficult questions, we have a good indication that we're doing well on the exam. However, if you feel like you're doing well, for example, I was doing quite well. Eventually I was getting all of these select all that applies and I was like, I got this, like we're doing great. Then suddenly I stopped getting them and I felt like the questions got really easy. So that probably indicates that I got a question wrong or maybe two questions wrong. And so the exam was kind of adapting to my lower ability for those questions and testing me on easier questions for a few like rounds, let's say. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a very odd type of an exam, but once you get it, it really does kind of help relieve the anxiety around this type of exam. So if there's any questions on that, just comment down below. I'll try and explain it again. So in general, I think the NCLEX is actually a lot easier than any exam we've taken in school. Obviously it's a difficult exam in general, but what I mean by this is that each chapter or unit exam that we do in school is very specific to what we're learning for that exam, right? So if you're learning, I don't know, about asthma and COPD, or, you know, heart valves, congenital heart defects, those questions are going to be so specific about those topics that it's like you're expected to know a lot, because it's just about, you know, maybe 2 or 3 topics at a time. Whereas the NCLEX is very, very vague, and a lot of the questions are more like focused about generically how we're going to care for someone, rather than like pathophysiology or specific medications, specific like disease processes. So whilst you can get those types of questions, it is definitely not the norm on the NCLEX. For me personally, just because I'm sure people will ask this, I would say the majority of my questions were about prioritization, delegation, like, you know, triage. So, you know, it will tell me like 4 or 5 different types of patients, and it's like, who will you assess first? Who needs medication first? Things like that. So a lot of it is just like generic nursing skills and assessments, and like, and just showing that we know how to prioritize the care of our patients. I did have certain specific diseases that I honestly had never heard of, but hopefully my generic nursing school knowledge helped me to like narrow down those answers and like answer those certain questions correctly. In terms of specifics, no math. I didn't have any audio questions. You know, we can get questions where you listen to your headphones and you hear like lung or heart sounds. I didn't have any of those. I know one person in my school that did, but I don't think many people got those. I didn't have any hotspot questions where I selected a location on the body. And honestly, like I said, I would say 70% of my exam questions were prioritization, delegation, and triage. And then specifics, I had quite a few like maternity and peds questions. Seemed to have quite a few diabetes questions. I think I maybe got 4 or 5 questions about specific meds. Again, in nursing school, we're expected to know so many freaking medications and like the side effects and the class of how they work and just everything about so many different meds, that the NCLEX was like a breath of fresh air, because it's like, oh, like 4 medications, I got this. Like, and also I will add, a lot of my friends had questions about insulin and the inhalers. So that's probably something that I would recommend you all knowing very well. Like, don't stress yourself out about knowing all different types of meds, because you're just not gonna have the time to do that. But I would focus on the insulins and just like any generic like asthma, COPD, like inhaler rescue med, like the SABAs and the LABAs. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but the short acting and the long acting inhalers. Just because that's something that I had on mine and a lot of my friends also had. So it must be like more of a common topic to be tested on. So yeah, just bear in mind that the questions that we get in nursing school are so much more specific than the NCLEX. The questions on the NCLEX, like I said, are so much more vague and generic. I mean, it's much more about applying what knowledge we do have to questions that we might not know otherwise, if that makes sense. Like I said, there were so many questions where I was like, I've never even heard of this condition or, you know, disease or anything. I'm like, how am I going to answer this? But because of what we've learned in nursing school, hopefully we're able to kind of like eliminate incorrect answers and like prioritize based on the knowledge that we do have. Okay, so now studying for the NCLEX. What I personally used the most was UWorld. I'm sure you've heard of it. UWorld is probably one of the most popular kind of platforms out there to prepare for the NCLEX. My school actually used ATI, but I just hated ATI. No offense, ATI. But it was confusing. Like, the questions would be too wordy and too lengthy. And honestly, a lot of the answers contradicted what I learned in school. So it would just kind of like annoy me. And honestly, I would get stressed out thinking like, well, what's the right answer? Like, how am I meant to learn this if everyone's telling me the answer's different. UWorld, I feel like the questions were a lot more straightforward, and what I was answering was a lot more in line with what I was actually taught in school, which made a lot more sense. And obviously it depends what you're used to, it depends what your school offers. Maybe, you know, I know some of my friends in different schools, their school actually purchased the ATI package for them, so obviously they're going to use that as opposed to going and paying another, you know, $200 for the UWorld package, which makes sense. But I just hated ATI. Like it just didn't work for me, and I loved UWorld, so that's all I did. And I'll be honest, I didn't study for the NCLEX. That's one thing that I think is my probably biggest like preparation tip, I guess. I didn't study content. I didn't like review things that I did in school. I kind of thought, like, I've graduated, I've proven that I know this stuff well enough. Like, I did pretty well on exams for the majority of the time in school, so I'm not going to be able to learn new things now, and I don't want to waste my time learning new things. So what I did, I honestly probably did about 100 to 150 questions every single day from when I graduated and when I took the NCLEX. And that sounds like a lot of questions. Some of my friends were like, I'm doing like 20 a day, and I'm like, 20? I'm doing like 20 an hour. And it wouldn't be like 150 in one sitting. I might do 30 when I wake up and then a 30 later. I did try and do the same number of questions every time, so it was the same like length of exam. So let's say if I got like a 60% on one exam and then like a 62% next time, I knew I was kind of averaging around the same. Whereas if I did like a 30 question exam and then like a 51, the grade would be calculated differently, if that makes sense. Then what I did do is, when I found a certain topic that I was struggling with and that I was getting, you know, mostly incorrect answers for, then I would go back to my content and review that content. So I did that specifically for diabetes, which thank God, because so many of my actual NCLEX questions were about diabetes. And I also did it for maternity. So I did go back to my like textbooks and notes and review that topic. But again, I didn't go back and study everything. I just reviewed what I had there and reviewed the topics that I found that I was having like difficulty with, if that makes sense. I have friends that reviewed the entire content from nursing school, but I couldn't be bothered to do that. I felt like that wouldn't be beneficial like to me and like my time management, I guess. So when you're doing your practice questions, whether you're using UWorld, ATI, like whatever platform you're using to study for the NCLEX, make sure you read the explanation of each question. And the trick here is, don't just read the explanations for the questions you get wrong. Read them for the ones that you get right, just to make sure you really grasp that content. So now for the Pearson Trick, which if you've heard of the Pearson Trick, great. If not, I'm going to quickly explain it. Essentially, once you've received an email from Pearson saying that congrats, you've completed your exam, it's not a result, it's just saying congrats, we've got on record that you've taken the exam. Then it says that in 48 hours you can pay for quick results to get your unofficial results. However, between receiving that confirmation email and the 48-hour period, you can do this little trick, which most people know of as the Pearson Trick. So you have to go back onto the NCLEX website and try to re-register for a new test date. But the trick here, hence the name, the Pearson Trick, is that you have to put in an incorrect credit card number, because if you fail, it's going to charge your card because it wants you to rebook the exam. However, if you've passed, it won't let you book that exam. It'll say something like, I'll try and get the picture and put it in here because I did it. It'll say basically like, our records indicate that you recently took this exam, you cannot rebook at this time. So that's known as the good pop-up. You want that thing to pop up on your phone or computer because it's indicating like, hey, hold up, we basically got on record that you've passed this exam, why are you trying to take it again, kind of thing. So I don't want to say it's foolproof because I don't know and I can't say that for sure, but it's pretty much foolproof because like everyone does it, and I don't think it's probably failed anyone that I know of. So even though I was pretty confident that I passed, like I had a bunch of select all that apply questions, like I said, like in my heart I felt like I did quite well. And then also I did the Pearson Trick and I got the good pop-up. I was like, okay, like Jess, you can probably relax a bit. I didn't relax, and I don't think anyone's going to. You're not going to. Nobody can relax until they actually see you've passed on your screen. Like, it's just, it takes over your whole life for those 48 hours. And I paid the $8 to get the Pearson quick results, and it says unofficial results, so it's basically them like kind of covering their backs in case something changes, which I don't think it can change, but like, you know, legality wise it's not official until you get it in the mail. So yeah, I mean, I paid, I saw the word pass, I started crying my eyes out, and I was like, holy crap, I did it, like I'm a freaking nurse, like. And then I was just like in this state of shock for the next like 2 hours, like calling everyone I know. I'm like, I did it, I passed, like. And the next day I got an email from DPH with my license number, and that's when it felt like really, really official, because I was like, oh my goodness, I am 100% a nurse, like I'm on, you know, the board of nursing like list of registered nurses, like that's my name, that's my official number, like I'm legit, like. Yeah, that was just such a good moment. And I mean, even though I did the Pearson trick, even though I got my unofficial results that said passed, until I got that license number, I kind of almost didn't fully allow myself to celebrate, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. Make sure you celebrate, guys, because we worked our butts off for this. And when you get that pass and when you like have your license number, just allow yourself to celebrate. Like I literally cried for a week straight after everything. I was crying after my exam because I didn't know if I passed or failed. I cried with the Pearson trick because I was like, it's a good pop-up, but what if it's not true? Then I cried when I got my pass results because I was so proud, and then I cried more when I got my license number because I was like, oh my god, I did it. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this has helped in some way. Wherever you guys are at in your nursing school career, like honestly, just keep going. Just do not give up. You are so close to the end. Like I literally can't believe I graduated. School feels so long ago for me now, and it's only been 2 months. So yeah, once you're there, once you're in the position that I am, you will be like, oh, school, piece of cake, like that old thing, I'm a nurse now. Like, but yeah, I know school is hard, it's stressful, it's so much like stuff, it's time consuming, like just it's a lot, we know that, but just keep persevering, guys. Honestly, it is so worth it, and you will all be nurses soon. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. And hopefully I'll be talking to you all about my job, where I accepted a job, like the interview process and everything related to an actual nursing career. Yeah, bye.